Ladies and gentlemen, it's 7, so it's welcome to this evening. This is part of the Bennington Tonight Show, so here you are. I'm Bruce Lee Clark. I'm a retiring pre-law and forensics instructor at the Southwest Vermont Career Development Center, and 23-year resident of Bennington. And I'm going to ask the people to my persons to the left and right to introduce themselves as well, just so that we all know who we are up here.
Mike, you want to go first, or you want me to go?
Oh, I'm Mike Bethel. I'm just a troublemaker in Bennington, I guess. I don't know. Well, look at all the people nodding together and agreeing. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm Sean Marie Oler. I'm a Bennington resident of just over 30 years, many years on the local and state education boards, and was on the charter committee for the town of Bennington. Mike asked if I would be back up for Bruce Lee Clark, who was going to moderate this, and we were hoping to have a discussion about what folks in Bennington would like to see change or would like to see stay the same, and Mike can certainly add to that. I had hoped we'd have some people who could be able to answer questions.
Sure.
Maybe there are some in the audience. I see 2 select board members.
Yep, there are 2 select board members in the audience, and I think we can utilize our collective knowledge and skills to be able to answer questions that people may have, or raise issues, or deal with concerns. It is my hope that this will be a constructive conversation. It will center around a couple of things, at least. These are my 2 concerns. One, and we've just been discussing it, has to do with civic participation in Bennington, and what I found, and I must admit that I somewhat participated in, the somewhat pathetic, what I would call pathetic, 6.6% turnout for the charter vote earlier this month. I'm in the Don Keelan camp, if for no other reason than I think that doesn't bode well for democracy. And if we can't do democracy in Bennington, Vermont, boy, it may not be doable. So and as a civics teacher and as a lawyer, that bothers me a great deal. So that's one of my issues. You will also note, and I don't want to steal Mike's thunder here, but there is a petition that he has had his lawyer prepare, and if you're interested in at least seeing it, it's over on the table over there, and Mike can speak more to that. But I would like us to have at least some discussion about pros and cons about that style or our current style of government here in the town of Bennington. It would be really helpful, I think, that though this is a really small and intimate group, it seems to me that if you could at least state your name so we know who I would like to be able to address people by name rather than by you over there. So if you could state your name, certainly ask any questions, make any statements you wish, preferably try to keep to factual stuff as much as you can, unless you're saying this is my opinion, which I think is perfectly helpful, and that we work on developing and maintaining the level of respect that I think is part and parcel of being in Vermont and being in Bennington. So with that, Mike, do you want to raise or talk a little bit about what you brought here tonight?
Well, like Bruce said, the first part of this is just to say that the new petition for the mayor, when and if it goes out, covers the majority of the concerns and questions that were put out there by the public before. There will be a 33-year term. The mayor will have veto over the select board, but the select board will have override. The override will, the citizens will have a right to petition the select board's override. That's what you do now. I'm looking at the two select board members in the audience. When you people vote on something on most issues, not all, but most issues, the citizens have a right to revisit your, so that's all that is. And then the 3-year term, like I said, and the salary will be set by the select board, you know, as comparable to what a town manager would get. It's not like a mayor's going to come in here in charge more than is comparable to what the other salary scale is. We put the 3-year term in here, and then some of the concerns was, well, who's going to be the business manager? What if a mayor is elected and he or she doesn't have business skills? But that's up to the mayor and the select board. That's part of their staffing. You wouldn't put that in a petition. My lawyer said you wouldn't do it. Bruce is a lawyer. You don't do that. That's up to the town government to do it. You might get just the opposite. You might get a mayor that's very much like a, you know, bean counter. And then the select board and he or she may say, well, we want somebody that's going to promote Bennington and sell Bennington and bring business here, recruit business. So, but I think everything is covered in this new petition. I don't know if I'll bring it in November or if I'll bring it in March or when we'll bring it. The signatures, whenever I get them, are good until you pass them in. I just want to have it back so people, I mean, we came, it was about 1,500 to about 1,000. And if we had gotten, and it was bad weather, I couldn't get out, yada, 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 we did sort of rush it. If we had split that 500 extra, which is only about 250, it was not bad for a, you know, quick thing. And I think, just, again, 2 select board members here, and nothing against you 2 people, but if things don't go well in town in the next year with some of the projects we've got or some of the other things, it may, you know, people may feel differently and say it's time for, I mean, we have it all in Bennington. I don't know what a town could want that Bennington doesn't have. I've written about it before. You've got a hospital, you've got a downtown, you've got the Northside Drive, you've got manufacturing, we've got the history, we've got the monument.
We have education.
We have education.
Thank you.
Well, we do. We have a great school, which always gets...
And a number of colleges.
Yes,
really
colleges.
Good colleges.
I mean, what more...
And the arts.
Yeah, and what more could you want, other than what we were just talking about before, an ocean view, you know? I mean, what more could you want?
We're landlocked.
Huh?
We are landlocked.
We are landlocked.
We are landlocked.
Yes, we are.
But I just feel that Bennington could be and should be, and I lived here as a kid umpteen years ago, and I hate to admit how many years ago, and it just wasn't like this. The attitude of the people, I know time has changed, but the attitude of the people was different. Money was different. Downtown was very vibrant. You could open up a store in a minute. You know, today it's really, but anyway, we'll get into that stuff. But I'd like to hear from anybody, like Bruce said, anybody that wants to ask a question of us, or if they have a statement they want to make too. Sean, you want to say something?
No, I would be interested, it would be helpful for me. And it would be my hope that if there is someone here who would mind asking or answering, I know, Sean Marie, you were on the Charter Committee, but is there, what were the salient reasons for saying, because I know you considered mayoral stuff.
Robert is here as well. He was on.
Perfect, that's right. So if there were salient reasons for rejecting the idea of a mayor, that would be, I think it's helpful for the discussion to be able to do that. If you wish. I'm not going to force anybody to talk.
Robert?
Jim. You're forcing me. But apparently, yes. Do you?
You go over that table.
Can you go? Is that helpful or?
Do the mics work? Are you hearing us out there? Are you hearing us? Can you guys, the audience, hear us? Oh, okay.
Good.
I don't know if these are working.
Please say if you don't. So thank you.
My name is Robert Ebert. I'm a citizen of Bennington, and in the spirit of full disclosure, I was a member of the Charter Review Committee. So I can't speak for the whole committee. I can tell you what my now dim recollection is of some of our deliberations. In a nutshell, as far as town government goes, we came to a consensus that the council-manager form of government is the most efficient, the most effective, the best suited form of government for a town basically the size of Bennington. We didn't see any cause to change that. For example, to elect a town executive, which I believe is called a strong mayor. A mayor who runs the town, basically takes over the job of town manager, is a strong mayor. That position elected, you already mentioned, you don't know what kind of expertise you're getting when you elect someone to run your town. Elections can have disastrous consequences. You're not quite sure what you're going to get, and you need someone with expertise and ability to run the nuts and bolts of a town like Bennington. We also talked about what's known as weak mayor. It's the other end of the spectrum. You can have a mayor who doesn't run the town. I think Vermont has, what did we decide, 9 mayors. 8 of them have town managers. The mayor isn't running the daily nuts and bolts of the town. In these cases, a mayor is more ceremonial. You can make any hybrid between the two you want. You could give a mayor whatever powers or authorities you want. It doesn't necessarily have to just be a purely ceremonial position. Most of us on the committee related to each other that in our conversations with people, when we'd ask about mayor, what people seemed to want in this town was leadership, vision, and some degree of accountability. Some people feel an elected mayor, then every 3 years, if that person wants to run for re-election, you can judge them and critique them and decide if you want to keep them or easily get rid of them. Under our current system, the town manager can be fired at any time without cause. They don't even have to have a reason. You just need 4 votes. I don't know how much more accountability you'd want in your chief executive than to be able to get rid of them at a moment's notice without even having to give a reason. So we on the committee, so we kind of split this into 2 things. We looked at leadership and vision, and we looked at accountability, which is what we kept hearing from people that they were interested in. Accountability kind of ended up falling in the chapter on town manager, and so what we did with that, we did a couple of things with that. One, we put in the charter a requirement that the town manager is evaluated once a year by the select board. We put in the charter that we want the select board with the town manager to work up bidding and purchasing policies that are clear and consistent and standard, and so the select board knows exactly how the town manager is going about that business. And we also put in there that every 3 years, whatever select board happens to be seated at the time will have to make a vote as to whether or not to keep the current town manager. No one has to make the motion. No one has to be the one to be brave enough to bring this up as an issue. Every 3 years, select board is going to have to cast a vote, and that will give the people of Bennington the opportunity to come up and tell the select board what they think of the job that the town manager is doing. So these ways we try to build in more accountability. Now on leadership and vision.
Hang on just a second. Well, I mean, I'm just going to ask if we can sort of make sure that I didn't want to get into speeches as much. It's helpful information, okay. And you're doing really well, and I don't mean to stop you yet, but I'm wondering if I could, can we parse this into 2, I see 2 different things going on. One, you talked about why you chose not to go with the mayor, and I think right. I would want to have some response to that first. Don't move.
Well, I'm not the subject, I'm not a subject matter expert on any of this.
I'm not, and we're not asking you to be. I was one, and then I would like to go to the pros for the town manager system as you have amended it in the charter. Okay, if that's helpful for people, and if it's not helpful for anybody else, I'm just trying to, so that I can remember things. And I can remember half of the argument, and I don't want us to lose that until, that's my point.
Okay.
Yes, Jim.
I think Bruce or Robert has given you a very clear explanation of what, wait a minute.
Yep.
Of what the board did, and I haven't found a bit of bias.
No.
Anything that he said.
And Jim, I wasn't talking about bias. I'm just talking about if I was new to this discussion, I would not be able to absorb that much material that it's like drinking from a fire hose. So while you're well versed in it, there are people in this room who may not be. And I'm going to try to make things a little bit shorter so that we can actually have the so don't go away.
Well, can I say one more thing?
Sure.
And then we can jump into it. I just want to, like I say, we parsed this into two different kind of concepts, accountability
and leadership.
And we dealt with the town manager, leadership and vision. So now we're back to the select board, our elected leaders. They're the ones we're looking to for leadership and vision. I assume anyone who runs for the select board has some kind of vision for the town. What we came up with for that was we put in the charter that we want the chairperson of the select board to be the head of government for ceremonial purposes. So it doesn't give the chairperson any more authorities or powers or anything over the other select board, but we want that position to be a little more special than it is. When the governor comes to town to turn on the tap for the new water system, we're thinking it should be the chairperson of the select board who makes sure that he or she or somebody gets over there to shake the governor's hand and to take a picture, that kind of stuff. When you see someone in the news, we want, you know, the chairperson to be kind of representing the town, and that hopefully will give that person an opportunity to display leadership and vision.
Well, let's play point counterpoint.
Well, I'm not here to.
No. I just want to.
Can I first ask? I want to ask out in. Are there? So I'm going to still divide this up, despite our apparently people's desire not to. I'm going to divide this up in two ways, if we can. First, it seems to me that there was a decision not to go with either a strong or a weak mayor. And that is and you stated, I think, fairly clearly what the reasons were. Does anyone, I know Mike has some issues with that argument. Does anybody else out in the audience have anything they want to say, opposed to the decision of the Charter Committee? In other words, are you if you're in favor of a mayoral type, or at least you have some questions about it that might be posing in that way, are there folks here who would be willing to talk about that? So you need to get up and state your name and go over to the microphone. And it's really important, folks, because this is people need to hear everybody's voice. That's my goal here, is that everybody who wants to speak will speak. So Jim, you will have the next chance.
I'll bring up a point. Yes, I know.
Yes, please do.
I'm Sam Ruskino of Bennington, Vermont, long-standing citizen of Bennington for many, many years. I think it's just the information that was put out there. A lot of people don't read the banner. A lot of people don't watch Facebook. They isolate themselves. That's one big obstacle of this town, is educating themselves on the issue. They're fearful. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself, a great man once said. And we really need to educate ourselves on the issue and try to learn the language. The language was very difficult, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but I think that was part of it, where they just didn't understand it, so they said,
So the language of the charter
charter. But and why are we doing this? And why
Sam, the question I asked had to do with about the mayor.
Right.
the issue of the mayor, the argument that there be a mayor or not?
Well, there were a lot of questions that were unanswered in the beginning. You know, what was the term, how long, who's going to be selected, leadership, all that. And nobody really in today's world wants to digest those questions. I'm not speaking for all, but I mean, I think that's a strong part of this community. Why there's such an opposition. We've got an old adjective in Vermont. If it ain't broken, don't fix it.
Okay. Thanks, Sam. Jim. Even though we know you, please introduce yourself.
My name is Jim Carroll. I'm a selectman for the town of Bennington.
Yeah.
I've spoken with quite a few people about this, and it's sort of a hybrid that you folks on the Charter Commission...
You're going to need to speak up a little
Okay.
more. I'm not sure
People say that all the time now. I think I'm a loudmouth, but anyway. The hybrid for this, instead of the chairman of the board being the ceremonial head of government, why not choose a first selector or first selectman who would be really sort of in my mind, it would be have a greater paid position that would coalesce the beliefs and the goals of the rest of the select board and work towards those goals, be a voice for those goals for the town, as opposed to a mayoral system or what is it, strong mayor.
Opposed to a strong mayor. But so, Jim, let me just ask you a question then, because it sounds to me, and I'll play devil's advocate on this, it sounds to me like the charter change and your proposal basically is a weak mayor position without calling it that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess
I mean, that's what it strikes me as.
But I think there would be greater responsibility on the shoulders of the first selector to really set a goal and an agenda and work toward that on a daily basis, and rather than it just be ceremonial.
Right. But that would be, so would you be, let me just, if we called that person the mayor of Bennington, would that be a problem for you?
Yes. I just don't like that idea because the idea of a mayor supersedes the board. And
no, the weak mayor, no, what I just said.
Just that phrase.
The word is what does it.
Suggests that it would supersede the voice of the select board, which the Charter Review Commission said that they found was the best form of government that we currently have.
Yeah. There's a question back here.
Yes, are you proposing something similar to like the role of Speaker of the House, like Speaker of the Select Board?
That doesn't sound...
People have a grievance or something they would like to see happen and approach that person,
Yes.
as opposed to who knows, you know, which one am I supposed to contact?
Yes, exactly.
You know.
And in my role that I've been on the board, I'll bet you that I get more complaints and phone calls, which I enjoy, I really do. And people calling me and voicing their concerns and addressing them. And I think you'd need somebody that would enjoy that part of it. But they can't, at the same time, sacrifice their income. So I think it would have to be some form of compensation that would...
Well, thanks, Jim.
Sure.
Did you have something you wanted to add?
I guess I wanted to, in the midst of this conversation, I wanted to hear why, if anybody present felt that a mayoral form of government would benefit the town better, or in fact, what people would like to see come out of the town government, no matter what the form is.
Well, let me take that one over.
Sure.
Because you're not going to find anybody in this audience who's going to pitch it any better. Some of the things that Robert Ebert said, if I can remember them, let me counter them. Number one, the 3-year term. Well, Stu Hurd works right now without a contract. He's worked for 25 years without a contract. That'll never happen again. You will have a contract. Nobody will come here and be town manager for less than at least a 5-year contract. So that kind of null and voids the fact of a 3-year term. Right now, the people don't feel in this town they have control over their government. They don't have a leader. Stu Hurd is in there at the will of the select board. I can't fire Stu Hurd. I can't vote Stu Hurd out. Not that I would want to. I like Stu. He's a great guy. But the people, if we want our town to grow and we want the apathy to show up not at the polls, we've got to give them a reason to show up. And the reason is your voice counts. And your destiny is the person that you pick to lead the ship, to be the captain of the ship. We don't have that now. And like we said in conversations with some of the people out there, Bennington has everything. There isn't anything Bennington doesn't have for amenities. Nothing. Compared to, we've got it over Manchester, we've got it over Shaftesbury, we've got it over Arlington. We have the state monument here, we have all the antiquity here, the history. We have the hospital, we have churches, we have colleges, art out in the West End and all like that. And yet we don't seem to have, why isn't anybody wanting to sit down and come in and invest in Bennington, outside money, to the Putnam block that, you know, they're trying to do, and to real estate? Why is there so many, you know, real estate signs up there moving? So this is why I think we need a mayor. And, you know, you can always be afraid of everything. In the chair of the select board, you don't have to vote in a chair of the select board to be the first chair. The chair of the select board is picked by their own people. Again, Hemmings had a thing the other day, and from what I heard, not one select board member showed up. The town manager wasn't there. And Hemmings put on a lot, okay? And we need to have somebody to at least thank the businesses that are here for putting on these things. And one of my biggest fears are that people are going to say the hell with Bennington. You know, and why did people not want to come here and invest in Bennington? And what I am hearing, which is good signs, is downtown, some of the private people are reinvesting in Bennington. The new Carmodies hopefully will open, I wish it would open sooner than September. Dwayne Greenwald, I heard, made another investment. Ryan Hassett made another investment.
We've got one person that came into this town, outside, Mr. Martinez, invested a lot in this town, opening up a credit union. And I think
right, but that's not private money. He works for a bank. Go ahead, Jeff.
All right, I'm just going to run over here for a second.
By all means, run over here and introduce yourself.
Jeff Grimshaw, Bennington resident, and what?
Would you like me to focus that?
No, I'm fine. I just want to talk about part-time versus full-time. If I had a $15 million business...
Can you introduce yourself
Jeff
first?
Grimshaw, Southern Vermont Today, Bennington resident.
Right.
If I had a $15 million business, and it was in a turnaround situation, and clearly Bennington is in a turnaround situation, where you have to throw more resources than you normally would to keep something healthy running. And I told you, I'll fix it. But I'm only going to do it on a part-time basis. I'll look at everything once every fortnight. But, yeah, what would you think I could do the job? I'll tell you, in business, there's no way. There's no way.
You're talking about a select board being basically part.
Yeah. We need full-time people. This is not just Bennington. The state suffers from this, too. We have part-time legislators who are trying to turn this state around. And you cannot turn something around with a part-time effort and a part-time endeavor. You cannot. I've been in big business in Washington, Atlanta, New York, Los Angeles. Been around the block. I've been in turnaround situations. It's hard. You can't do it. What do we pay these people, the good people? Well, you run the numbers. We pay our select board 1/3 of what a middle school babysitter makes. What kind of commitment can we expect? And God love them. We get a great commitment out of them. But we pay them 1/3 of what a middle school babysitter makes. So you take part-time people and you give them a pittance, and then you want them to work a miracle? Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Same thing on the statewide level. You pay them a pittance. You want them to turn the state around? Not going to happen. And so all I can do is just tell you from a business experience standpoint, working for Fortune 500 companies, Bennington is a business, and you have to start running it like a business. One other thing. If there is to be a new petition mounted, I would urge the pro-mayor side to ratchet their rhetoric down, because they turned a lot of people off. Okay? My vote went here, pegged from here to here, based on the rhetoric. And the rhetoric, if you were on the wrong side of that, I was called everything in the book by the pro-mayor people. So I would urge the pro-mayor people to, 2 words, be nice.
Well, let me clarify that. That wasn't the pro-mayor people that were doing that, so.
They were people who were engaged, not in your service, but they were agents of that. They were, Mike. I want to be honest. I've been very honest here.
In the beginning, they were.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's helpful. Are there others? I don't want us. Are there others who would like to speak about the mayor thing who haven't yet spoken? That's the reason. Okay, if you could say who you are.
Sure.
And
I'm Nancy White. I've lived in Bennington all my life. I've watched the select board meetings on a regular basis since the 1970s. And I can tell you the way the board has operated over the past 10 or 15 years is not the way it's operated in the past. The homeowners of this community used to be the most important group in this town. The job of the select board is to make sure they let us know ahead of time who wants our money and how they're going to spend it. Our feedback used to mean something. I can't think of a group in this town who has been put off into a corner and neglected more than the local homeowners over the past 6 or 7 years. The lack of awareness and concern I hear from board members about the homeowners in this town struggling to pay their taxes more and more each year is very concerning. I've listened to the past couple of years that we need to create high-end housing at an affordable price for people to move here from outside the town and state. We need a mayor, so the mayor will start putting the homeowners first. We need to be able to afford here. I talk to people all the time who don't think they're going to be able to afford to live in Bennington in 5 to 10 years. And to have read that the governor recently signed the bill, the Move to Vermont bill, where our local taxes are going to subsidize people to move here from out of state, absolutely ridiculous. If the town and the state don't start putting the homeowners first, this town will be bankrupt. The poverty level in Bennington rose 25% from 2012 to 2017. Why didn't any local official ask for a study to be done to find out what's driving poverty so high in Bennington? I read a comment last year, and I'm not sure who made it in the banner, but it was someone tied in with the downtown that said a lot of funding for upcoming projects will be tied to job creation and poverty. I haven't heard of any jobs being created in the downtown or upcoming projects outside of restaurant, retail, and office jobs. These are the same jobs we've had here for 100 years. There's a lot of information about the TIF program that we haven't received information on. Again, 20 years ago, we would have known specific facts ahead of time. I'm afraid we're going to be on the hook subsidizing so many projects and programs we aren't going to be here in a decade. And just a last comment on affordable housing. It was less than 20 years ago that the Rutland Affordable Housing Corporation spoke to the select board. I believe it was Diane Binnick who represented the group. She said they were going to come to Bennington, purchase existing buildings. They would stretch every dollar and be accountable for every tax dollar they received. When they first started out, it was a wonderful program. They took a lot of homes in Bennington, they used common sense in spending, and it made an improvement in the neighborhood. In 2015, I watched as Shires came before the select board. They were concerned because they only had $176,000 to spend to renovate each apartment. Who would support a project that at least part of the money is coming from taxpayers to spend $176,000 to renovate apartments? And I believe with the help of the select board, they received over $500,000 from the state in taxes. I believe the final cost in the end was $212,000 to renovate apartments.
That's one apartment, right?
Sorry?
That's each apartment, right?
Each apartment. Most of us who own homes for 50 years will never have that much money. I'm sorry, what?
I'm at a loss to figure out where the source of that information, if you have.
Sure, I wrote it down. Hang on, let me tell you.
That's great, and the other one is.
$510,000? Where did that money come from?
No, it's the amount per apartment that I don't.
I know it was
Apartment building?
when they came before the select board, it was $176,000. And they were looking for support from the select board so they could get a grant from Vermont for an additional $510,000. And I believe they got the grant in the end. I think it was $212,000. I can't support housing projects that are spending that amount of money in this town.
Okay. So I will in a sec. I just also want to raise while I've been teaching, I have also been working with the Greater Bennington Interfaith Community Services, and you mentioned an increase of 25% in the poverty rate in Bennington between 2012 and 2017?
According, and I have the town report, the big community report that came out. In 2012, the poverty rate in Bennington was 15%. And I believe it was somebody from the Interfaith Council who spoke a year ago that said it was at least 20%.
You would be talking to that person right now, and I will tell you it was never at 15% in 2012. Never.
What was it?
Way higher. The poverty rate in Bennington is still substantially high. It is not, that is an intractable, not unsolvable, but it is an untractable problem, and one that when I was on the Greater Bennington Interfaith Community Board, had been working on for about 8 or 10 years. But there has not, if you got the impression that there has been a dramatic increase in 5 years, that's not the impression you should have gotten. That's certainly not what I was intending. We feed, for example, the kitchen cupboard feeds about a quarter of the population on average in some way in any given year.
A quarter of the population
you provide services.
Yes, is taking food out of the kitchen cupboard. Yes.
So we have 15,000 residents.
Yep.
In Bennington. And you're feeding a quarter of them?
They don't all necessarily come right. We don't ask everybody where they come from, but yes, a good number of them come from Bennington. I'm not trying to.
Okay, it states it right in here. The poverty rate in Vermont was 11%. In Bennington, it's 15%.
And that's from the.
This is the community visit.
Oh, that was the community visit action. That's not a correct number. I am sure that's not a correct number. I still think it's you're absolutely right that it's extraordinarily high.
Yes, it is.
And too high.
Part of the reason it's high is because it's come easier and easier over the past 15 to 20 years to move to Bennington with little to no resources and be able to receive assistance.
I am not, well, personally, I will say I am not sure that I would say that's the reason. But am I concerned about the number of and availability of jobs for the people of the basic working people of Bennington? You betcha I am. I'm very concerned about that. And as I understand it, your argument was, and just help me if I'm just wrong, Nancy, your argument was that a strong mayor might have a better chance of alleviating a number of the issues because they would be more accountable to voters who would vote. Is that your argument?
My argument is somebody has to understand that the homeowners of this town are being taxed out of their homes. We cannot pay for every program and project that people come up with.
Okay.
We're paying for a lot of programs in town that help people from outside of Bennington. Some communities contribute, some don't.
Yep.
There are many issues that the homeowners are facing.
I hear you, Nancy. Thank you.
I want to address a couple things. One thing that Mike said and one that Nancy said.
Sure.
With respect to shires, we were all appalled by the amount of money that was going into, let me finish, please, into those housing units. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine who is a plumber and won a bid on that, he called it stupid money. Well, you know who's making the stupid money available? The federal government, not the state of Vermont. It's the federal government's requirements that they put in place that are so myriad and stupid, and they're throwing all this money at it. So your anger is misplaced. It's not the state of Vermont, and it certainly isn't the town of Bennington.
Okay.
Secondly,
Yeah.
with respect to what Mike said, Mike, you put the onus on Stu Hurd as the leader of this town. He's not. Your select board are the leaders of this town. I want to tell you, you know, this is something that you've harped on for years, and you've put it on in his lap over and over and over again. And let me tell you from direct experience, having served on the board for 6 years, I have never gotten a single directive from him ever on how I should vote or what I should do.
We didn't say, Jimmy.
I'm not done.
We didn't say that.
No, that's what you implied when you.
No, it is not.
Yes, it is. When you say that he's the effective leader of this town, you're misleading people. That is not the case.
Who's the leader of the town then?
The select board. Your select board.
Which one of you are the leaders of the town, of the 7 of us?
Collectively.
It's collective. It's collective.
So then we have no one leader. That's my point.
It's fine. You know, I think I addressed that earlier, and when I said that, you know, if we had a first selector, that would solve that.
I hear you. So I think what I understand.
Tom is, Jeannie just said Tom is the
I said Tom is the chair.
Well, he's the chair.
The chair of the select board.
But I want to make absolutely clear, Mike, you can't keep harping on this because you're misleading people. Stu Hurd is not the leader of this town.
No.
He is the business manager of this town, period.
I think that is a helpful clarification, and I will say, as a person remembering back 23 years ago, whenever it was that I first came, I was trying to make head nor tails out of how Bennington worked, and it wasn't until it dawned on me that it was the 7 select board members who were essentially the collective leadership of the town, I think, I don't remember who the chair was. I think it may have been Lodi, but I'm not sure. My best guess is that it was Lodi Colvin. It still strikes me, I mean, there's a legitimate question that it seems to me that still could be asked. And I'll try to put it in as non-emotional way as I can.
Agreed.
Does a system that allows 7 people to collectively lead a town, is that, in the words of that we heard earlier this evening, is that the most efficient way to run a town of the size of Bennington? I think reasonable people can disagree about that. But I think that's really the question that's being asked by the petition, and I'll say again that Mike's petition in its current draft form is available for those who want to see it. It's over on the table. But that's really the question that's being posed. And it is not about who is the leader of the town. I think that's a settled fact at the moment. And that is a 7-member collective group that we elect at large, so that the 3 of you who are here tonight, and thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you.
The 3 of you who are here tonight, each of you can listen to a complaint that I might have, but, and obviously none of you can speak for the town because you're not authorized to do that. Only the select board meeting in a meeting can do that. And one of the questions that I guess I would have for the larger community is that a system that makes sense in the 21st century? And I'm going to say, I'm not sure that I know the answer to that question yet. But what I would like to come out of these discussions and future discussions or future conversations is I would like to have a full-throated conversation about that topic, because I don't think it's patently obvious that one is absolutely superior to the other. And so that the status quo, even in its new funky form of, and quite frankly, you may have had legal opinion on this, but the notion that the town manager is a completely at-will employee strikes me as bizarre.
It's the truth.
It may be the truth.
This select.
But I understand that, but that strikes me as, if that doesn't strike anybody else as bizarre,
Well, let me clarify.
That just seems strange to me.
Let me clarify it for you.
What is it you find particularly strange about it?
That he doesn't have a contract.
No, it's not that he doesn't have I actually think he does have a contract.
No, he does not. I know that for a fact. So
No. Contracts don't have to be written.
Contract. We're stuck with him for 3 years. If we are so unhappy with him.
If you hire a town
I'm not done.
Wait, hang on.
We're so unhappy with him. We can get rid of him with 90 days notice. With 3 years, we're stuck with him.
Listen to me. Listen to me. That's with Stu Hurd. Stu Hurd is not going to be here forever. And nobody's going to take a job and move his family or settle in Bennington. Or her family.
Thank you.
And run for a mayor's position and be the leader of our town without a contract. School teachers.
He's not the leader. And look.
Not Stu, the mayor.
Excuse me, if I may interject.
Sure.
We'll be wanting to hear the whole conversation.
And it's really hard to do that. Thank you for reminding me. I appreciate that. Yes.
You got to go up to the microphone.
But you got to go to the microphone.
People can't hear you.
People at home can't hear you, and people at home will want to. Well, I do. And I think it's just important.
I just want to make a clarification about one point. I don't know if, well, okay. So, where our recommendation is that every 3 years the select board has to vote on the town manager, that does not take away the select board's ability to fire the manager at any time without cause. This does not create a contract. What this means is what we want, what we're trying to accomplish is to avoid a situation where someone in that position becomes such an incumbent in the position that it becomes almost impossible for a select board to work up the will to replace that person. What we're saying is every 3 years, whatever select board is in existence will have to make a vote, an affirmative vote to keep the town manager. It's not a contract. What we're trying to do is create, I'll say, a forum every 3 years that will allow the citizens to come forward and tell the select board what they think about the job the town manager is doing. And they can take that input and they can take their own opinions about how they think the town manager is doing and make that vote. No one has to be the brave one who's going to try to make a motion to replace the town manager. It will be automatic. Every 3 years, they will have to vote whether or not to keep the manager, but it does not take away their ability at any time to fire the town manager without cause.
But isn't that sort of a fait accompli? Isn't that already been decided in the charter?
So,
yeah,
well,
so that's actually, that's not a moment that's even up for debate, it seems to me.
It's not up for debate. I just wanted to make sure everyone realized that we did not eliminate the select board's ability to fire the manager at any time.
Right, I understand.
It's a vote of confidence.
And I understand that this is an at-will state. I still, I don't think, go ahead, please do, because I'm sort of at a loss.
I think part of the reason I agreed to do this was because I would like to hear what it is that people think isn't being done. I know Mike has said that, you know, people will be more accountable, that that one person will bring businesses, but really, what are we looking for in Bennington? So I asked the 3 select board members who were here, what is it that you do as a select board that solicits input from the community? I know you have meetings every 2 weeks on a Monday, and is there anything that you do to outreach the community that, I mean, I know there's other development meetings
Yes,
and these
you wanna
meetings
go
and
for
those meetings. So I mean, here's your opportunity to let us know what it is that the select board does to solicit information from our community.
Hi, so I'm Jeannie Jenkins. I'm on the select board. So I think you're going to get different answers from each one of us, and honestly, I think that's a strength of a select board, is that you are getting different perspectives from different individuals. I think a lot of this has to do with our own personal interests and our own personal and perhaps our jobs, and certainly organizations that we're tied to. So for me, education and economic development are both areas that I spend a lot of time both professionally. And so for me, I think talking to a lot of people about schools, attending school board meetings. I work at the community college, so therefore doing a lot of things with post-secondary education. Looking at the connections between workforce and education. I co-chair, along with the Department of Labor, a working group in that area. I also participate in a number of groups in town that both give me, I think, insight into initiatives coming into the community from the feds and from the state, as well as hearing perspectives of people who are working in the field. So I think, I think those are sort of the formal ways that I personally get input, and then on top of that, I think we all have individuals who want to share information and have conversations, and so we're always getting input from individuals. So, my guess is that for all of us, it's going to be a whole lot of what people come up to us to share, and then the things that we seek out for information to inform ourselves.
Sure.
I'll speak loud. Question. In 2016, there was a town survey done with a lot of value and a lot of promises, and that was to get a baseline. And then we were supposed to move every year with a new survey to drill down. Remember those words? Drill down. We haven't heard boo since December of 2016. What goes?
Are you talking about the survey that Mike,
I think there was a survey that the town...
Yeah, that Michael Keene and...
Is that Paul Solo?
No.
You're talking, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yes. So, and that, I think it's languishing. And I think in part that was because the structure of economic development and community development changed for the town. And that has not come back into focus. And, in part, I think it is because of the changes in the way that we've worked with BCIC to provide the economic development piece. I do think it was a useful first step, and I do think that it is something that we should absolutely revisit.
I'd love to help you with that, because
So.
we ran one in 2017. It echoed a lot of things. Would love, if you're shorthanded, love to help you.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Sure.
Did you want to speak?
Yeah. I just want to echo a few things that Jeannie said, and that is, I think for each and every one of us as select board members, we get contact in a variety of different ways. I get it through social media, phone calls, being on the street, mainly addressing common everyday concerns. And more to the point, with respect to what Jeff just brought up about the survey, I think that, because each of us in our own daily lives, all of us, I think every one of us has full-time jobs. But without a clear guide in the sense of a first selector who may outline yearly goals that need to be addressed, those things slip through the crack. But I applaud your willingness to step up and do it, and I'll gladly put whatever I'm part of my back into that to help you to get it done. And you know, over time, those things, like I said, they slip through the cracks, and they're meaningful. But without you know, a clear leader to make sure that those things happen on a recurring basis, this is what happens. Donald?
Jim?
Yes.
So I asked the audience and the select board how you solicit information other than maybe the public comments. And, you know, Jeannie talked about just individually in her work, she talked about hearing from people. So I'm wondering if the collective board has a list of priorities that they are aware of and can share with, you know, this small group and the viewing audience. Because I would imagine every board has a priority list of what, you know, their agendas are for the year.
Well, as a matter of fact, I've asked for that for just about every year that I've been on the board, and I don't mean to throw anybody under the bus, but sadly, you know, that hasn't been addressed. My number one priority that I've talked about for years, and you know, I haven't been able to devote as much time to it as I'd like, and I need to take responsibility for that, is to have every town property be to have solar generation that pays the electric bill for every property that we have, so that instead of the town expending money, we're getting paid to use our roofs to generate electricity and lowering the taxes that people have to pay. That's what I'd like to have done.
So Don, are you going to pitch in your select board sense?
Well, only to the extent that it adds value. I do think it's you know.
So Don, could you, Don, thank you, thank you, I appreciate
Donald Campbell,
that.
I'm on the select board also. I wouldn't want to belabor it. It feels to me like perhaps the inquiry is a little bit more interesting to what other people would feel like they would like, what kind of input they would like to have with the select board. But in very general terms, I would say that the select board system perhaps is an old form of government. It's a form of government that's been around for a long, long time. And it's possible that we've outgrown it. It's also possible that it still serves us well. And I think it's really nice that you're saying we have a fine nuance here. It's not a black and white issue. Let's play with that edge. And I appreciate the fact that you're trying to get this group to do that. On the positive side, with the select board, ideally you have a large number of people that make themselves accessible to the community in different realms. So on our select board, we have somebody who works in the hospital, somebody who kind of revolves in the healthcare system. We have somebody who works in education. We have Jim, who's just like this peripatetic guy that goes in every circle in town. We have Tom, who's in the law business. I'm in the land conservation business and tend to work in the land and real estate region. So in theory, there are a lot of different access points to the select board. So you may not know everybody on the select board, but the chances are that 1 in 7 you would have some access to that person, some ability to have personal access to that person. And so I think most of us spend our time trying to, as much as possible, solicit information from the people that we come in contact with. I'm somewhat sympathetic to your mayoral thing, only a little bit.
I hear you.
But I'm somewhat sympathetic because as volunteers, it's a lot of work to keep up with everything. So there are a tremendous amount of evening meetings that we have to go to, there are a tremendous amount of weekend meetings that we have to go to. You know, to your point, Jeff, would money fix it for me? I'm not sure. It would have to be a lot of money, you know, to really change the way somebody feels about it. I do feel that volunteerism for your community is an important concept. And while we do get paid a little bit, it's a little bit more like a mileage stipend. We for the most part, are doing most of this because I think that the select boards for generations have felt like this was a way of giving back to the community. Now, if we've outgrown that volunteerism and if we've outgrown that collective decision-making, then we should be looking at some sort of other system, and I'm open to that conversation. But what I'm not willing, what I would be personally not willing to give up would be the careful, deliberate town management that allows a town to slowly or even quickly, but steadily improve, so that we don't end up with a backsliding every time you have an election. And I appreciate the fact, Mike, that you sort of have adjusted your thinking on this a little bit and allowed for the idea that there could be professional management that would stay with the town and continue having steady work. When you look at the work that our town manager does, it's very, very intricate. So union negotiations and long-term debt, millions of dollars of debt at a time, very complicated issues with PFOA and with personnel and liability. A lot of different things come at our town staff. And I think it's important to have a steady hand on the helm so that at some level the town is able to kind of continue to keep the systems working and keep the town safe and keep it improving in all ways possible. I'm talking a little bit more than I meant to here, so I'm going to wrap it up. But I do feel like the access to the select board comes from this notion of people sprinkled throughout the community, and that doesn't necessarily have to change whether or not there's a mayor. I think.
In fact, as I understand it, it wouldn't necessarily, I mean, in my experience, that doesn't change at all.
Right, absolutely.
Nor does the deliberativeness.
That's right, but what you do have is, in that situation, is you have access, in theory, you have access to the very people that would be making that decision. So you can have a personal conversation with the people that would be voting up or down on something, instead of somebody who would be in a position to be checks and balances with the mayor.
Before you leave the podium there, let me address a couple of things with you, because you're right on some of the things you brought up. The reason I did this petition the first time, there was supposed to be a second phase to this, the first petition. Like you with your charter change, there has to be two. You can't bring the option tax in. You had to have the first step, second step. That's even this here. There has to be a second vote on this, number one. Number two, the reason I did it this way is I don't want Bennington to become a city or have a city council. I want us to have what we have. But a mayor would be the person that would have to work to be successful with the select board, not fight against them because they wouldn't last. A mayor is going to get in there, and if they want this to be their job for 10, 15 years or whatever, they got to get reelected. They've got to work with the select board and vice versa. The select board's got to be successful. But the thing that we all have to remember is whether you have a mayor, a select board, or a town manager, we have to think of what Mr. Rogers there has said and Ms. White has said. We've got to start thinking about the people that cannot afford to live in Bennington anymore. Not just Bennington, but the state of Vermont. I'm not thrilled with what the governor, he should have vetoed what they just proposed on the tax thing. But that's a different story.
But what I'm saying is, what are you getting at? I'm losing you here.
No, we won't go there because that's a different subject. People in Bennington, I get calls all the time too. And the elderly people that have lived here for years cannot afford to live here anymore. Whether their fees go up, their taxes go up, their water bills go up, everything else. And no offense, that bothers me. If I've lived here 20, 30, 40 years, and I want to retire in the town that I lived in and put my sweat, blood, and everything else in, and all my money, I don't want to see these people being kicked out. We've got to start addressing these issues. We give more time at the select board to the nonprofits in this town in shires than we do our average citizens. And somebody's got to be held accountable to say, what can we do to keep that lady and that gentleman and anybody else in this room or out in the town in their homes? That's number one in my book. If I was on the select board or the mayor, and I don't want to be the mayor, but if I was, that would be number one. Keep the customer satisfied. They pay your stipend, even though you're not volunteers. You're an elected official, whether you get paid $100 a month or not.
So I feel a little bit like you're lecturing me, and what I came to sit up here just to talk about access to a political system. May I be excused? Or?
Oh, yeah, you don't have to.
Mike, I just mean you're on a political thing here, and I appreciate that. But what I'm talking about was, I just was trying to answer the question that Sean Marie posed, which is how do people access the current political system?
And the secondary question, as I recall, and Sean Marie, help me out, and you don't have to feel like you're not on the.
I don't want to be. Yeah, I don't want to be the center of attention here.
No,
I want to say that there's a case for select boards, and I understand that select boards have trouble doing everything, and so there's also a case for some other form of leadership. But the most important thing to me is that we keep a steady, productive government going. So that's where the buck stops for me.
And I would be incredibly supportive of that too.
Okay, so if I may, I'd like to sit down at this point.
Sure.
Thank you, Don, for sitting there.
I just want to thank the 3 select board members.
Yes, thank you.
Mike
Sure.
asked me to invite them, and I didn't want them to feel that they had been put on the
hot seat.
Right.
I didn't mean to do that. Did I do it? Did I do that too? Did I put you on the hot seat? I was just answering.
It's not a hot seat, it's just no.
Right.
All right.
I don't want to debate that with you. We spent a lot of time thinking about affordability and thinking about how to make this town better, and that's a whole other conversation.
Right. But and I'm not. I'm gonna test the waters here just to see where we are. Hold that thought for a minute. Test the waters. We've been at this for about an hour and 5 minutes. I'm inclined to say that there comes a time where the capacity to think creatively is proportional to the sort of the pain in the seat. And these are not the most, in my view, the most comfortable of chairs.
That's why I brought my own.
I understand that.
This thing here recline.
The rest of us are not able to deal with that. So here's my question. What is the will of the gathering with regard to time?
Well, let's hear from this person.
We're not going to not hear from that person. He raised his hand ahead of time. But by quarter after, are you done or?
8:30, so let's just see how.
We're scheduled till 8:30, but so if you want to stay longer, or up to then, that's fine. Why don't you make your way to the microphone if you can? Because I think, can we? Well, it's the microphone for the folks at home, and it's the folks at home are as important as the folks in the room. I think that's the way to say it.
Well, there you go.
Thank you, Sean Marie.
My name's Lawrence Roberts.
Right.
I came down here 40 some odd years ago, attended one of your schools, Southern Vermont College, graduated 4 years there, never left the place. I worked in their maintenance department, and I've got a lot of friends and whatnot in this town. My whole life's been here. But now, I'm a disabled veteran. My wife has got critical illness. She's crippled up rheumatoid arthritis, and my friggin' water bill is so high. You people are going to take my house. There's something wrong with the town of Bennington if they can do that to people that have dedicated their lives to this town. I can't tell you how many battle reenactments I've done for this town without any thanks. I actually had veterans from U.S. Bennington on site up at the college. I couldn't get the banner to come up. I had Channel 6 News, and I had Channel 3 with the banner. They didn't think it was worthy enough. These guys served on your ship. Mm-hmm. There's damn few of them left. There's only about 4 now.
I know.
And I think, this town, when I came here, was a friendly town. You had a restaurant on the Main Street corner. I can't remember the name of it. You went in there and you got a decent meal. You met a lot of good people. You had Fishman's and Woolworths on Main Street. You had some interesting shops. Well, about 15, 20 years ago, your choices were down to, well, you got a couple bars. And now, you haven't got much of anything, except you do have a new shop that's opened up down there, it's Bennington Armory. It's present day and the past of firearms. Two guys are in there, great citizens. And they really love being on Main Street. But, look, and we just recently lost Kmart. So now we only have the one store, Walmart. We put Walmart through hell to get here, and that was shameful. You know, we're so negative to people coming into this town. We don't think we are, but we are. And, you know, and like the gentleman said, you know, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Well, I kind of look at it this way, you know, you're taking a big chance driving the truck down the road if you don't have a spare tire. You're not putting aside any slush funds to like help the sewer department when they have a major breakdown. There's no money there. So now they got to come back and shove it to the taxpayer again. This water deal with these extended lines, you're going to kill this town. You know, where's the end to it? At least with a strong mayor in here, he's going to be looking right at you and saying, hey, how come this job isn't being done? And how come you're spending $30,000 more than you should? You know, it has its good points there. And I don't mean to be insulting or start an argument with anybody, but, you know, like this, the whole deal is going on over Bowen Road in my back dooryard. I got a big salt shed. That big salt shed sitting right on the edge of Furnace Brook. And 2 or 3 other little brooks that come through there. It's also sitting in the middle of kind of a wild animal preserve. There's a lot of mallard ducks in there, which you get caught violating environmental rules there, you're not going to just have the state on you. You're going to have feds because the ducks come under federal regulation. You haven't seen fines yet till you get tangled with them. So, you know,
so Lawrence, I take it this is a
poor planning and management.
I hear you. So what I would, help me out if I get you. I just want to, for my mind, I want to hear what you're suggesting is that a strong mayor would, in your mind, be a better way to manage the assets of the town. Is that what you're?
You got to stop spending money you don't have.
Well, all right.
And I'll tell you one other point that really, this is going to be really irritating to you folks. I've got a young fellow that I've kind of taken under my wing, a kind of adopted grandson. He's 17 years old now. He went to a gun show with me when he was 15. Seems to be a good student in school and everything. Well, we paid our way, got it's in there, and they have a little raffle ticket there that you fill out. And I filled mine out, and I looked at him and said, you got to fill that out, you got to sign your name. He says, Larry, I can't. I said, what do you mean you can't? You're 16 years old. He says, I don't know how to write. Mount Anthony student doesn't know how to write his own name. That's disgusting. You can print, but where's he going to sign for a paycheck? How's he going to sign for a mortgage? Get a piece of property here that you can tax him on. You know, you show me a school where a teacher in a classroom has got 20 kids. My 6th grade class, when I was in, there was 37 of us. We didn't have 4 or 5 teachers' aides. We had a teacher. And your folks are turning a blind eye to one of the biggest blotches you have on this town. It's a damn drug problem. I mean, you've got little businesses around here being held up pretty much, you know, several times a month or a year, just so these guys can support their drug habits. I mean, you know, I used to feel safe in this town. I don't anymore. I carry a gun. So, you know, it's time to do something.
I hear you.
Lawrence, I just want to make sure, since you've shared some things, that you've been able to contact the right person that might be able to help you with the issues that you have with your home. And if not, if you could just maybe ask one of the selectmen or board people who might you call to help with some of the housing issues you might have.
Well, gentlemen, it used to be a lot of help to us, believe it or not, and don't laugh too hard, was Reggie Farrar. You could always go to Reggie and get an answer.
Well, you have 3 select board people here that have hearts, and I tell you that I think in the conversation
I'm not saying that they don't.
Huh?
I'm not saying that
no, I didn't say that, but I think
see
they can.
The one gentleman there, he was getting a little upset, and justly so.
But I think the select board, that's a good point, maybe you guys need to address, is there some kind of aid you can get for this water increase and everything when somebody's lived in their home this long? I mean, if there is, fine. If there isn't,
just take a ride around this town and see the properties that got for sale signs on them. Why? Why are people leaving?
Well, we hear you.
That's the problems you got to fix.
We hear you, and you're not the only person. Mr. Rogers called me about a week ago, and I said, well, show up and say your piece. But there's been others that call me all the time. And that's my big thing is, we can't push people like him out of town because they've lived here, worked here, they've paid every damn tax going, and we got to find some kind of a relief. Even if it's a donation type thing, you put in a kitty to help different people out once a year or something. We need to do that, because these people that have lived here forever need the support.
Larry?
Yeah.
Jim, you know, you and I have known each other for over 30 years.
I'm trying to place you. I'm sorry.
I was a student government president at SBC.
Okay. I've had a stroke in my short memory.
Anyway, I want to invite you to call the town office, ask for a message to get to me, and I'll respond. I'll come over to your house, I'll sit down. And I think anybody on the board would do that for you.
Sure. Sure.
So just call the town office. I know you do. So call, all right? You gonna do that?
Can't give you money I don't have.
I'll do whatever. I may not give you the answer that you want, but I'll give you the answer that the law provides.
Okay. It's okay. Sam, you're back.
Yes, I'm back again. Just want to make an observation. I've been in this town for 55 years, and people keep saying how things were back different 40 years ago. Well, rules and regulations have changed years ago. You ever stop and think about the burden of the select board meetings and the frequency in the last year? They're meeting every week just to conduct business. Bennington is open for business 24/7, 365, like it or not. And this town and citizens in Bennington better have that attitude. I'm half awake at night trying to figure out in my head how to get people coming into this town. I'm not trying to be Mr. Bennington. I want people to come into this town and live and grow. Where are you from? Oh, I'm from Ohio. I'm from Georgia. I just moved here. Well, thanks for coming here, and thanks for investing your time here and living here. Here's my number. In case you want any, I lived in this town quite a bit, and if you want answers, call me, and I'll direct you. We've got to get attitudes that way. Between select board members, I've watched meetings. They meet on Saturdays. Most citizens around this town don't even know about that. There is a life besides select board meetings, but it has gotten stronger and stronger.
Sure.
It doesn't end up. There's more demands with meetings, with wastewater, with budgets, the connection through Montpelier. The demand is great, and it's going to increase in the next 5 years. We all know that, but some of the residents in town don't understand that. They're looking at dollar amounts like that gentleman right there, and I don't blame him one bit.
No.
I'm engaging in this town because I've made a decision. I'm going to die in this town. I'm not moving out. I got strong roots. You're going to have to fight hard to kick me out of Bennington, because I'm fighting for the rest of the ones that come into Bennington. And I welcome anybody that comes into Bennington with all their investment in this town. That's what I want. And we've got a store that's closing, Kmart. What I'd like to see is a big lot. That's all we got. We can't have a Target. It's no demographics. But big lots, all we got. And I've made phone calls. I took the initiative to make phone calls and get them into that store. And I'm going to get big lots into this store because I don't want to see another vacant residence. And I want to see the grand list grow. And I want to see economy grow. And I want to see smiling faces in this town. So when you see me on Main Street or around town, I'm going to have a big smile and have a conversation with you folks.
Well, thanks, Sam. I appreciate that.
Sorry if I've gotten a little arrogant.
No,
but
it's okay.
It's just an argument that goes through my head.
I know.
And it's an ongoing problem that's going to be there for a long, long time.
Let me just raise another just another way of thinking about it. It is not that, it would be not my observation that Bennington has gotten too big to have a select board. That's not my observation. It's not about bigness. It's about what are the 24/7 demands and what are the, and I still have, somebody has already asked me this earlier today, am I for a mayor or am I for the select board? And I think that's a false choice. I actually do think that's a false choice. Do I know what level of mayor I might like if I liked having a mayor in Bennington? Not yet. I don't know. And I'm not sure. I'm not as sure as Mike is. That's absolute, I think, and I've told him that.
You're not alone.
No. But I do think that, can I just say, I have appreciated the level of passion about in the conversation tonight. I hope others have sensed it, that there is a passion for the well-being of the people of this town as well as the town as a collective. And a lot of people have put a lot of time into lots of different parts of the town life, whether it's in education or in not-for-profits or in industry and business. I personally would love, as coming out of the Career and Technical Center, I would really love for us to find ways to have more small business and industry here. And if I could, but recognizing, with the caveat that back when I first moved here, one of those small businesses that was doing really, really well was bringing in a lot and was touted was ChemFab. And we know what the results of that are. So there are trade-offs, and I want us to be wise about what those are. Let me just finish my thought. My thought is, I think this is the beginning of a really important conversation for this town. I am hopeful that the work of the charter committee and the work of the select board in getting charter revisions is the start of a process, not the end of a process. That Mike's push for a mayoral form of government is the beginning of a discussion, not the end of a discussion. I actually hope that you take a look at the petition that is here so that you actually read it with some care. I think it is worth our time and consideration. I appreciated every single person who spoke today. I'm not an elected person. I probably will never run for election. This is probably not in me. And besides, what the world doesn't need is another old white guy sitting up front doing something like that.
I resemble that.
I understand.
As a lawyer.
And as a lawyer, I really don't think you want another lawyer. So I have other things that I can be working on, and it'll be perfectly fine. But I just wanted to say I really did appreciate your coming, and I know Mike may have something else he wants to say, but I wanted to particularly thank you for sharing how you were sharing and the way in which you were sharing, because it tells me that there is something really worth working for here in Bennington. And Mike, you wanted to...
We got to kind of wrap this up in about 5 minutes, because then we have an hour-and-a-half show and then get it on Cat TV. And I do appreciate all of these comments, especially the 3 select board members. Jeannie, I really enjoy you. Jim, once in a while I enjoy you. Dawn, thank you very much. I know you must have not wanted to come, but I appreciate you coming. The good news maybe is when Kmart goes out, the good news is I've heard something will come in and replace Kmart. It may take a little bit of a time, but they'll revamp that to make something in Kmart. And then the other thing is, we all have to watch, we need, because of this Amazon ordering over the internet, we have to be very careful that we don't lose Northside Drive. Because that is one of the things that pay our bread and butter. Sure.
We've actually got one more person who wants to speak, and I'm going to We've got 4 minutes. We can actually do this.
This will be quick.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Clark Adams. My wife Shirley and we bought a home here in Bennington about a year ago. After many years of visiting Bennington, we looked at property over in New York State, and she decided that this area was full of good people and it was a good place to spend our twilight years. One thing I've noticed since I've been here consistently is the friendliness and helpfulness I've encountered in the community. Just about every business we've gone into, very welcoming and saying, well, thank you for coming to our town. So from what my observation is, there's a lot of people here who love Bennington and want it to succeed. The town we currently live in, we moved there like 30 years ago. And like a lot of the mill towns in New England, it was on hard times. And, we bought a home and decided, well, we're going to make it here. But one thing struck me as odd is as we started improving our property, one day I actually opened a letter from the mayor who said, hey, we noticed building permits and that you're working to improve your home and, of course, the tax levies. And we want to thank you for trying to make this a better town. All the positive experiences we've had in the year we've been in Bennington, I really haven't heard from an elected official, even to the point where a letter in the mail saying, hey, thank you for buying a house in Bennington, and an outreach, or as these gentlemen from the select committee have said, hey, if you have a problem, come see us. Tell you the truth, I had no idea who to go see. I didn't know we didn't have a mayor in this town. Now, those things didn't factor into why we came here. It's the good people we met over the years coming to Bennington is what brought us here. So, that's the only thing I can say is I think if there was more of an outreach from a leadership, governmental standpoint to people who come to the town. We looked at a little town out, an area you're probably familiar with called Cape Vincent, New York.
Absolutely.
And we were up there looking at property off and on over a couple of years. And we went back one weekend and I was in the little grocery store. And the guy bagging my groceries said, hey, you're looking for a house here, aren't you? We heard about you. I mean, the word was out in this little town, hey, there's some people who want to come here. The guy described it as a town full of young people who can't get work and old people who are here to die. I don't think that applies here. But that's how he described his town, but they were very, collectively, people said, oh, new blood, people want to come here, keep the town alive, thank you. I haven't heard things that extreme here, but I think from a governmental or leadership standpoint, that probably would factor in a great deal into helping keep this town moving forward.
Well, thank you, Clark. I appreciate those comments. I think it's always helpful to see a town with new eyes. And my eyes in Bennington are not new anymore. But so I appreciate what you just said. We are at the end of our hour and a half. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Please be careful on the way home. And keep your eyes and ears peeled. We may do this again in some other way. I never know.